Hello, and welcome to Archives and Records Simplified. These videos are aimed at people looking for basic knowledge about archives and records management, although at times I will also touch slightly on information and library science. These videos are designed to provide bite-sized chunks, which means that almost every video will be less than 15 minutes. These videos are honestly for everyone, and comments and suggestions are always more than welcome. About me, Sean Macmillan, I'm an archivist based in London, and you can learn more about me via my LinkedIn profile, to which there is a link posted below. And I'll also post a transcript and notes also if you struggle at any point to understand my accent. And lastly, if you enjoy these videos, I would be extremely grateful if you could kindly like, subscribe and share. Thanks again. Okay, so this one is about the InterPares project. And InterPares stands for International Research on Permanent Authentic Records and Electronic Records. Okay, so first of all, a quick overview. So the main goal of the InterPares project is to research and understand how we can protect the reliability, accuracy, authenticity and authentication of digital records. InterPares looks to establish a strong intellectual framework, theoretical and methodological frameworks that can help guide policies and procedure, and they endeavour to work with professionals in various countries and from various disciplines. And it's also worth including, and I think I'll touch on this more, the InterPares project is very much an inclusive and collaborative approach. And I think the best way to sort of approach this video was to break it down into the four main phases. But what I would say is that the best resource really for understanding more about what they do is to have a look at their website, and the link to the website is posted at the bottom of this slide. Okay, but I think it's also worth giving a quick word about the InterPares director, Luciana Duranti. I studied much of her work as a student, and I would probably rank her among the most significant thinkers in the archival world. She's currently based at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, but I believe she began her career in Italy, and I think she has a background working in French archives. And this is quite interesting. Often as an archivist, one of the things you maybe overlook that you're not aware of is that archival and record keeping systems can vary quite a bit by different countries. In fact, I remember an interview where Eric Kettler, the archivist, claimed that he could identify which country a set of records were from just by looking at them. And I think that having that diversity of background is a really big plus point, and I think that's a really big asset. Durante contributed heavily to the concept of the archival bond, which relates to the relationship that each record has with another record, which I believe leads to the conclusion that the links between electronic records needs to be firmly established in a way that you don't often have to do for paper records. She's also published quite extensively, and I thoroughly recommend you look up her work. One of her most recent works is the Encyclopedia of Archival Science, along with Patricia C. Franks, who's also written another book that I'm really keen on reviewing. Okay. So Phase 1. InterPares Phase 1 ran from 1999 to 2001, and the InterPares 1 project was based on the findings of a previous research project, the preservation of the integrity of electronic records, otherwise known as the UBC project. It was undertaken by researchers at the University of British Columbia from 1994 to 1997 in collaboration with the United States Department of Defense, and aimed at establishing standards for creating reliable records, electronic records, and maintaining their authenticity during their active and semi-active life. Just a quick word on the terms active and semi-active. If you're aware of the record's life cycle model, you will be aware of what those terms are. If not, I've done a separate video on that, which you should be able to find. The main focus of the InterPares 1 project was ensuring the authenticity of electronic records, and InterPares 1 produced a number of important findings and conceptual requirements. These findings were recorded in a book, The Long-Term Preservation of Authentic Electronic Records, Findings of the InterPares project. Okay, and that leads us on to the next part. So InterPares 2 ran from 2002 to 2007. The aims here were to develop and articulate the concepts, principles, criteria, and methods that can ensure the creation and maintenance of accurate and reliable records and the long-term preservation of authentic records in the context of artistic, scientific, and government activities that are conducted using experiential, interactive, and dynamic computer technology. And again, the book at the end of that project is also really useful. So as I say, this obviously takes us well into the 21st century, and I think this is when a lot of the digital technologies began to speed up a bit. And when I also think digital preservation started to be looked at more seriously by other organisations also. InterPares 3 operated from 2007 to 2012, and I would personally say that InterPares 3 became a little bit more practical. On this basis, teaching modules were developed for in-house training programs, continuing education workshops, and academic curricula that provided professionals with the competence to not only preserve over the long-term society's documentary heritage in digital form, but also ensure the accountability of organisations and institutions through the protections of accuracy and authenticity of digital information they produced. And one of the great things about the InterPares 3 project is that you can also access specific knowledge relating to educational material, emails, metadata, organisational culture, personal records, among others. For example, they have a really excellent paper on appraisal strategies for gaining control of records and network drives, and another one on cloud computing. And essentially, you can find this information on their website, among other things. So as I say, InterPares 3 for me that project seemed a little bit more practical, and I thought that it was, for me, that was one of the best parts of the overall project. I really enjoyed reading about that. Okay, so InterPares 4 is the latest of the projects, and the link on the InterPares website leads to another dedicated website. In summary, this project ran from 2012 to 2019. The separate website is noted here, and the website provides useful terminologies, case studies, research findings, and links. The work in this led to a book to do with records in the cloud. Unfortunately, it's not free, but if you are a member of SILP, you do get quite a generous discount, so definitely worth looking at. I understand that 2 other books are being published, one from their European team and one from their transnational team, and that the Latin and African teams are also working on their own books also. Okay, so a few conclusions about InterPares. The first thing I would say is that InterPares offer a really consistent lens. They're a consistent organisation that have been operating for well over 20 years, and that's quite rare. You'll tend to find that in a lot of areas of digital preservation and within the archive and information sector generally, you'll see small working groups or collaborative groups will crop up, and then they'll sort of lose momentum after a couple of years. InterPares have kept going, and I think that they're one of the few projects that have maintained that sense of longevity, and I think that's a real advantage. The other thing I would say is that their research and work is highly practical, but they do touch on the theoretical quite a lot, which I think that's something that's a real added advantage, and that's one of the things I really like about their work. They're very diverse and international, so they include professionals from all over the world, and they also include multiple perspectives. They include the opinions of many professionals from many backgrounds, such as commerce, government, or science. Also, it just can't be understated just how extensive the research is. They really do undertake quite a lot of work, and that the case studies are highly useful. And it's also worth saying that none of the materials on the website are copyrighted. They create as much material as possible to be used by as many people as possible. Lastly, I came across a quote during my research for this video from one of their conferences that their aim is not to address an audience, but to include an audience, and I really felt that sort of sums up their ethos and their approach. So in sum, InterPares is a haven for good quality, practical, theoretical, and multifaceted research.
And I'm going to finish off with a couple of links and references, and please, I highly recommend that if you have any interest in digital preservation or maintaining the authenticity of digital records, you take a look at their work. Thanks again. Any comments or questions, feel more than free to post them below.
And if you enjoy these videos, I would be extremely grateful if you could like, subscribe and share. And also just to remind you that I would be absolutely delighted to take any requests for future videos also.